Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptiQ, the channel where we break down the crypto stories that actually matter. And today we've got a fascinating one that every XRP holder needs to hear. Sentiment around XRP has just hit a wall, and not in a good way. We're talking about the lowest sentiment readings of the entire year. But here's the twist, and trust me, this twist might actually be bullish. Stick around because we're diving deep into what's happening, why it's happening, and most importantly, what history tells us could happen next. So let's start with the data. According to on-chain and social analytics firm Santiment, XRP, which currently sits as the sixth largest cryptocurrency by market cap, has seen its sentiment quietly fall off a cliff over the past few weeks. This isn't just casual chatter either. Santiment uses something called the weighted sentiment metric, which is a pretty sophisticated tool that combines overall social volume with the ratio of positive to negative comments being made online. And right now, that metric is showing XRP at its lowest point of 2026 and its lowest level since all the way back in October of 2025. That's 8 months of declining vibes around one of the most talked about coins in the entire space. Now you might be asking, why is this happening? Well, there are a few reasons stacking up together. The most obvious one is price weakness. When a coin's price struggles or trades sideways for too long, people naturally get frustrated, and that frustration shows up in how they talk about it online. But price isn't the whole story here. There's something deeper going on, and that's fatigue. Real, genuine fatigue from traders who have been waiting years, literally years, for major catalysts tied to Ripple's legal situation and the long-promised wave of institutional adoption. People are tired of waiting for the big moment that keeps getting pushed further down the road. Here's where things get really interesting, though. Despite all this negativity, Santiment pointed out something that long-term crypto traders know very well. Extreme FUD, that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt for anyone new to the space, has historically been a precursor to bullish reversals. In their own analysis, Santiment specifically noted that this level of FUD tends to spark rallies rather than confirm further downside. Think about that for a second. The exact moment when everyone feels the most hopeless can sometimes be the exact moment the market decides to turn around. And this isn't just theory either. Santiment dug into XRP's own history and found something pretty remarkable. Some of XRP's strongest rebounds in the past have happened precisely when the crowd was at its most disinterested. When social media chatter dries up and the comments that do exist are overwhelmingly negative, it often signals that the weak hands have already sold, the panic sellers have already left. And what remains is a market that's primed for a shift. Essentially, when nobody's talking about a coin anymore except to complain, that silence can be the calm before a storm, and sometimes that storm moves upward. So what does the actual sentiment data look like beneath the surface? Santiment combined social volume with the ratio of positive versus negative commentary, and the combination of declining discussion volume alongside heavily negative commentary suggests that a huge portion of traders have either already moved on entirely or have drastically lowered their expectations for what XRP can do in the near term. In other words, people aren't just upset, many of them have mentally checked out. And in crypto, when the crowd checks out, that's often when the real opportunities start forming for those paying attention. But here's something crucial that the sentiment numbers don't capture: the actual fundamentals. While social media enthusiasm has been fading hard, the underlying development activity on the XRP Ledger hasn't slowed down at all. In fact, according to the same report, development activity, XRP Ledger usage, ongoing tokenization initiatives, and a growing list of institutional products are all continuing to advance, even while the public conversation around the coin turns increasingly sour. This is a classic case of the chart and the social feeds telling two very different stories. Let's talk price action for a moment too, because despite all this doom and gloom in sentiment land, the actual price hasn't been falling off a cliff at the same time. At the time this report was published, XRP was actually up 2.74% over the previous 24 hours, trading around $1.14. Looking at the slightly longer term, XRP was also up about 1.16% over the past 7 days, so we've got a situation where sentiment is crashing toward yearly lows, but the price itself is showing modest green numbers. That kind of divergence between sentiment and price is exactly the type of setup that technical and sentiment analysts love to watch closely. Now let's shift gears to some genuinely positive news for XRP holders, because it's not all about sentiment charts and metrics. XRP has just been recognized in Fortune magazine's brand new Fortune Crypto 100 list. This is the very first edition of this ranking, and it highlights the most influential projects that Fortune believes are shaping the future of blockchain technology. Getting included in a list like this, especially in its inaugural year from a mainstream financial publication like Fortune, is a meaningful signal of recognition that goes well beyond the crypto-native bubble. It's the kind of validation that can matter a lot when institutional players and traditional finance executives are deciding which projects to take seriously. And speaking of real-world utility and institutional movement, Ripple has been busy. The company recently announced an expansion of its long-standing payments partnership with Bitso, which is one of the major exchanges and financial platforms operating across Latin America. This expanded partnership is a big deal for anyone tracking XRP's actual use case in cross-border payments rather than just its price chart. So, what exactly is happening with this Bitso partnership? Bitso operates a regulated MXN-backed stablecoin called MXNB, which is essentially a digital token pegged to the Mexican peso and backed by real reserves under regulatory oversight. As part of this expanded partnership, MXNB is going to be issued directly on the XRP Ledger. On top of that, it's being integrated into Ripple's payments on DEX infrastructure, which is designed to support enterprise-level stablecoin settlement across Latin American markets. This is the kind of real, tangible, business-focused development that often gets completely overshadowed by short-term sentiment swings on social media. Let's break down why this Bitso integration actually matters in practical terms. When you combine RLUSD, which is Ripple's own USD-backed stablecoin, together with MXNB on the XRPL's permissioned DEX, you start to create genuine regulated liquidity bridges between US dollars and Mexican pesos. This isn't some abstract crypto concept either. This is infrastructure that's specifically designed to help enable real-world enterprise payment flows between businesses operating in the US and across Latin America. For a network that's constantly being judged on whether it has actual utility beyond speculation, this is exactly the type of use case that supporters point to. Now, stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, what we're really seeing here is a fascinating contrast. On one side, we have crashing social sentiment, traders who are tired, frustrated, and increasingly checked out after years of waiting for major catalysts. On the other side, we have continued ledger development, expanding institutional partnerships, mainstream media recognition through Fortune's new ranking, and modest but positive price action even during this sentiment slump. History, at least according to Santiment's own analysis of XRP's past behavior, suggests that this exact combination, extreme negativity combined with quiet underlying strength, has preceded some of XRP's biggest moves before. Of course, and we always have to say this, past patterns don't guarantee future results, and sentiment data is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Markets can stay irrational, fatigue can turn into capitulation, and catalysts that traders have been waiting years for can continue to be delayed. But for those who track these sentiment extremes closely, moments like this one tend to get marked on the calendar, because when the crowd gives up at the same time, the fundamentals keep building. That's historically been a combination worth paying attention to. So, that's the full picture for today, folks. XRP sentiment sitting at 8-month lows, traders feeling fatigued after years of anticipation. But underneath all that frustration, real development, real partnerships, and real recognition continuing to roll in. Whether this turns into the kind of rebound that Santiment's historical data suggests is possible, well, that's something only time and the market will tell. Make sure you're subscribed to CryptiQ so you don't miss the next update on this story. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think extreme FUD means a bottom is forming, or do you think this time really is different? We'll see you in the next one.